much. If we could, Josh, let's get right to it and talk a little bit about what we need to do to bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States.
Sure. Well, first we need to get the federal government out of the way of businesses here in Ohio that are trying to create jobs and grow. Whether it's folks who are running these businesses or it's blue-collar men and women who are operating machines and making things on a day-to-day basis, they don't want some faceless bureaucrat in Washington telling them what to do and how to do their job. And so that's one thing we need to do. Secondly, we need to have affordable energy. If manufacturers throughout the state of Ohio can access and purchase energy at an affordable rate, it means we can pay people more, we can hire more people, and we have to depend less on other countries. You know, I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I did 2 tours in Iraq, and it just sickens me to see our country accessing so much energy from countries like Iran that was funding roadside bombs against troops in Iraq during the war, or Saudi Arabia, where the religious leaders is calling for the destruction of all churches in the region. We should be accessing and producing the energy here in Ohio, here in America, and that not only puts middle-class families to work, but it also keeps the cost down for manufacturers that keeps jobs here in America.
How can we lay things out or a situation out where we can make sure that China's playing fair with us on the world market?
I think that's a great question. And you know, one of the things where we have a disadvantage against China is our regulatory environment. They pretty much hardly have any regulations there whatsoever. And there's a very unlevel playing field. We have these manufacturers in Marion County and other counties that have to hire an army of accountants and attorneys and compliance officers instead of hiring more men and women who could actually work on the line making goods and making products. And so that's one of the first places we have to start. You know, we don't want employers in Ohio spending a ton of money, you know, dealing with paperwork and having to hire a bunch of lawyers and accountants. We want them hiring actual blue-collar who are making goods and producing goods that can be sold throughout America and throughout the world. And that's one of the best ways to be more competitive against not only China, but also India and Mexico, where unfortunately our jobs have been going. You know, over the past decade, I believe politicians in Washington have failed us. Over the past decade, we've lost over 500,000 jobs here in the state of Ohio, and we've lost about 3,500 factories. And we can't keep sending the same people to Washington and expect different results. You know, in my mind, in order to change Washington, we got to change the people we send there.
Now, Senator Sherrod Brown is coming to Marion today with a message of he wants to stop currency manipulation by the Chinese and also bring more or strengthen the Buy American clause. I guess, you know, what's your take on that?
I don't know Sherrod Brown too well. I've only met him a couple times. Seems like a decent man, but he's part of the problem. I mean, this guy's been running for political office since Richard Nixon was president. He's been in Washington for 2 decades. And, you know, if he was the answer, I think our problems here in Ohio would have been solved long ago. The fact remains, over the past decade, we've lost over 500,000 jobs and 3,500 factories. And it's people like Sherrod Brown who are trying to stop the exploration of oil and gas here in Ohio and here in America that are keeping those jobs. It's people like Sherrod Brown who are cast the deciding vote on the federal government's takeover of health care, who are costing us jobs right here in Ohio. I think he's a nice guy who's out of touch. I think it's probably the best way to put it. He's just out of touch with what mainstream families want here in Marion County and throughout the state of Ohio. And I think this fall you're going to be seeing Ohioans come to the polls to kick out incumbents. They're going to kick out a lot of Democrats, and they might kick out some Republicans. But at the end of the day, they're going to come there and say, these politicians in Washington have been there for a long time. They have not been doing the right thing for our country, and we need a new generation of leaders, a new brand of leadership. People like myself who sound a little different, look a little different, feel a little different, and are in a new generation who are willing to stand up to political bosses on both sides of the aisle. Listen, I'm a Marine Corps veteran, did 2 tours in Iraq, and I'm not going to get pushed around by some politician in Washington, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. And if people want to learn more about my backbone, they can just go to my website at joshmandel.com.
I want to ask you real quick, you know, standing up, well, let's talk a little bit about affordable energy prices, and I'm talking specifically about gas. A lot of people would say that there's very little politicians can do about gas prices, but then again, whenever we hear about the gas price barometer being affected, they always refer to political situations. So size that up for us.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those areas where Sherrod Brown and I just respectfully disagree. He has supported boondoggles like that Solyndra out in California, where they took our tax money here in Ohio back to company in California. Company gets raided by the FBI and goes bankrupt. And he continues to back these like crazy companies in other parts of the country when we could be exploring for energy right here in Ohio. And that's what I think we should be doing. We should be in a responsible way that protects the air we breathe and the water we drink. We should be drilling for oil and gas right here in the state of Ohio. We call it the win-win-win. It's new jobs for the state of Ohio. It'll bring down gas prices at the pump and prices for heating our homes in the winter for families right here in the state of Ohio. And it'll be our little contribution to national security from right here in Ohio. And it's places like Marion County and Knox County and Licking County and counties throughout central Ohio, north central Ohio, eastern Ohio that'll be producing these goods. And you better believe throughout Marion County there's going to be manufacturers who are going to be able to create jobs because they're going to be making component parts for this oil and gas exploration. And people know, they will know when they vote for Josh Mandel for the U.S. Senate, they're voting for someone who sees the natural resources here in Ohio as assets, assets that we should maximize in a responsible way.
Now, let me ask you this, because there's a lot of people are happy about the falling unemployment rate. I happen to be one of them. However, my happiness is just a bit tempered when you look at the fact that service jobs have led that employment surge. Does this really signal, obviously the rate's going down, but is this a drop that's going to last? Or are we maybe, heading into another period where we could be losing some jobs again?
Yeah, listen, Mike, it's impossible to predict the future. We have no idea where the future is going to take us. But I can tell you this. Our strength economically and our strength militarily in this country depends on our ability to make things. And while there are a lot of important service jobs in the Ohio and American economy, at the end of the day, we need to be an economy that is based on manufacturing and agriculture. That is the strength of Ohio and America: making goods, producing goods, exporting goods, and those are the jobs we need to focus on creating as quickly as possible. At the end of the day, if we're not strong manufacturing-wise, we're not going to be strong economically or militarily. And God forbid, there's a next generation that might be in some conflict with China or some other country. We don't want to be dependent on our enemy for steel or for rounds that our boys and girls are going to be sending downrange. We need to be making these goods here. We need to be manufacturing here, and that's why I feel so strongly about focusing on manufacturing jobs, and also feel so strongly about the importance of seeing our energy here in Ohio as an asset. We got to see the oil and the gas and the coal in Ohio as an asset and view them that way. And again, it's just one of those areas where Sherrod Brown and I respectfully disagree. And your listeners who are listening, they should know when they pull that lever and they vote for Josh Mandel this fall, they're voting for someone who will do everything he can to strengthen manufacturing, but also see our natural resources as assets. And if people want to go to our website at joshmandel.com, they can learn about it because we have a lot of articles on there in respect to oil and gas exploration. This is a big issue in the state of Ohio.
Okay, now had your the incumbent on just minutes ago. Last question that I asked him was, between now leading up to the November election, what are we going to hear from you? And I'd like to end this interview with the same question.
You're going to hear a positive vision for restoring our economy in the state of Ohio and in America. And you're also going to hear about a young guy who's got backbone. As I said, I did a couple tours in Iraq in the Marine Corps, and my backbone comes from two places: the Marine Corps and my grandparents. One of my grandfathers was a U.S. Army Air Corps veteran. My other grandfather was a blue-collar worker, worked at a brass factory for over 30 years. And these men never had a college degree. One of them spoke broken English to the day he died. But they were proud Americans, and they instilled in me a love for country, and they instilled in me a courage to stand up to people when I think they're doing the wrong thing for our country. And when people hear the name Josh Mandel, they're going to think of someone who's willing to go to Washington to stand up to Republican bosses, stand up to Democratic bosses, stand up to the media, stand up to very powerful moneyed interests to do what's best for the people of the state of Ohio.
Excellent. Well, I'll tell you what, Josh, hopefully you and I can get together again here in the near future.
I look forward to it. Anyone who's listening throughout Marion County, anywhere else, I hope to earn your support. Again, this is Josh Mandel, and in order to change Washington, we've got to change the people we send there. We've got to send some new leaders to Washington.